They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today we will take a look at Catwoman. Now this is her Knightfall version. Pretty classic version of this character. Pretty excited to take a look at her, and I'm really happy that McFarlane decided to go with this version of Catwoman. Now she does look pretty stealthy in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at her. But first, she does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now of course these are not really needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. She also comes with her data file card. On the front you do have some comic source material. Pretty cool. I love the purple lipstick that they used on this image. And on the back you do have some information. Of course, a lot of versions of Catwoman in the DC Multiverse. We have already received actually a version of Catwoman from the Pattinson film and from the Arkham video game series, but I am really excited to take a look at this more comic version of Catwoman. Now she does come with some accessories. She does come with some alternate kind of claw scratching hands. These are really nice. You can actually see the cool detail, even though they are kind of a similar shape to other hands we have received, but they are slender and deadly version with those little claws at the end. Pretty cool attention to detail. Always awesome to get some alternate hands. Now she also does come with this huge long whip, and I do mean long. It's actually almost too long, but I'm pretty sure if you put it in the right poses and set it up nicely, you can get some cool shots of her with this whip. And it is nice to, you know, have it long to wrap around things. So not going to complain. It is actually a really awesome accessory that McFarlane included. It does have a pretty thick handle with a cool strap. And you do have these kind of whip tassels on the other end. So we will add this to our accessories. Pretty cool. Now let's go ahead and take a closer look at her. First impressions, although the color purple isn't exactly like in the comics, that's more of a real, you know, high shiny purple. This one's a little bit more drab. It does give her a more realistic look for some reason. Like instead of a comic figure, it actually looks kind of like a live action figure, especially with the head sculpt. Now there is an alternate version of this figure, if you could find it out there. It is a platinum gray version of Catwoman. But if we can't find it, no biggie. We are happy with this purple version of Catwoman. So all in all, it's all good. A lot of cool sculpting I could see right away. There are things I do like. There are some things that I don't like. And there are things that I will be changing to, you know, make it more to my liking and to my preference. So all in all, she looks really good. Another thing that stands out is the blue that they put on her hair. It's like really prominent and sticks out and pops, you know, kind of almost overdone with the blue, but for right now it's fine. I'll leave it like that. Let's take a look at the head sculpt. Once again, as I said, pretty cool hair, but the main thing is the face sculpt. Has a lot of nice shade on the skin tone. You can really see the realistic tones that they took with the eyes and the mouth. Pretty nice. Now another cool thing is Even the ears are really nicely sculpted out where they have a lot of detail, and the mask actually has some cool design lines that are very faint, but they do stick out when you see them. They just add a little bit more to the whole aesthetic of the cowl. And of course you could see that blue hair. Now, one thing that I'm not a big fan of, once again, I have to say this, her eyes look like just so straight and forward that they have no like kind of attitude or life to them. And it's kind of off-putting because when you look at her straight on, they just look like they're looking into space. So you get kind of that mannequin lifeless feel. I can let it slide for now, but I really wish that we had at least a little bit of a skew eye, which means that she would be looking a little bit tilted to one side and just give her more attitude. I mean, have you guys never had a beautiful woman like give you the side eye and it just does something to you? And that's what I'm talking about. One of the reasons why I like the side eye, because it kind of gives you that come hither feel from when the figure or a female is looking at you. So I'm not going to complain too much about it. It's fine. I can always add side eye if I really wanted to. But it's just one of the preferences that I have, and the zombie mannequin eyes just don't do it for me. Now, one cool thing that McFarlane did do that I want to, point out is you'll see that the hair, it's like connected to the back of the cowl underneath, and with kind of like a long piece of plastic that goes underneath. And what this allows is it bends really far back. Now it kind of feels like it's gonna break off, but it doesn't, it doesn't seem like it. Like it's like the plastic is sturdy enough to move back, and it doesn't rip, any of the seams or anything like that. But what this actually allows is more movement, because this makes the hair more free flowing and you could get a lot more articulation. So she looks down really well. And with that hair that moves out of the way, you can actually get her to look up extremely well. And this is without any modding. So this is really awesome that they finally found a way to have a figure with hair, but that is still able to articulate. As long as they can connect it to the head like this, then it's going to work out really well. You do have right to left. And then of course you could tilt her head for some attitude. Pretty sweet. Let's move down into the cat suit. Now I do want to talk about a couple of glaring things. Like, first of all, really nicely sculpted upper torso. You can really see the well-formed breasts underneath. The top part, you got some wrinkles in between to give it like a realistic feel. And then dropping down into the trunks. Now, I'm not going to say, it does look kind of weird because for two reasons. One reason is they're kind of big. I think just that the cut that McFarlane went with was too wide. So she kind of has that like granny panties feel, when if they would have cut it more like a lot of the female figures that they've actually done, it would just give her a more appealing and flattering shape to her lower body. And then of course another thing that people talked about was how she has this like kind of big mound down here in the bottom area. Now I gotta agree with D Hunter, and he said that people talked about it so much, and when you finally get the figure in hand, it's actually not as noticeable or not a big thing as people made it seem out to. It is kind of, sticking out a little bit more than you would like, but we will take care of that once I get done looking at the figure, as well as the fit and the cut of the trunks. We'll also take a look at that. Now let's take a look at the waist articulation. You do have side to side. You do have that full tilt-a-whirl at the waist, actually really smooth movement. You do have a lower waist swivel and an upper chest swivel, which allows you to put her in some cool acrobatic poses. Now, she does not have a crunch. I mean, it's real slight, but I also attacked this when I redid the trunks, so I'll show you all that in a little bit. But of course, she can lean back as per usual with McFarlane figures. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the shoulders. She does have that McFarlane socket with a bushing shoulder joint. Now this gives you a lot of good range and movement in the shoulder, and it also covers that gap that would usually be there in the shoulder socket. Now she does have a little bit of up and down, front to back. Bicep cut. Now this is really nicely hidden, which is right at where the gloves are, up above her bicep. And she also has double jointed elbows. Now, one thing you do want to take care of, and that is that this is a more feminine shaped figure, so the arms are really slender, and you don't want to be too brutal with them because, you know, they're not as thick as a normal, you know, male figure. But they do look delicate and beautiful, and I just love this gloss that the gloves and then also the boots have. I'll talk about that later, but it's just an awesome shiny gloss. It looks really good, and it pops actually off of the figure. Now moving down, you do get that full sleeve glove down into the sculpted wrist joints, which make it a clean silhouette into the hand. Now of course these are just regular grasping hands, which you could use to hold her whip or whatever, but you can pop these off. And I actually prefer the like claw scratching hands, but it is nice to have the other choice if you would like to, you know, have her with the whip and then have the other hand, you know, as a gesturing claw scratching hand. So all in all, it works out really well. Could get her in some cool poses like that. And on the other side, of course, you have the same setup. Now you can easily get her into a T-pose, classic. Now you can't get much more than that, but you can move her arms above her head. And then using the articulation in the arms, you can actually get some really nice above the head poses. Pretty awesome. Now let's move down again to where she is packing some heat, and let's check out the thigh swivel. Now this is really tight, but you do have a semblance of thigh swivel. Now of course, if you were to heat this up, you could probably get a little bit more rotation, but what it does allow is if you kick it out, you can swivel the boot from right to left without having a thigh cut. And also she could kick up really high. Now the trunks will start to move here, but do not be afraid. She can kick back as well. And even though the trunks get kind of like wrinkled up, when you put her legs back down, they go back to their original shape. Now you can cock out her knee, and she does have that McFarlane hip swivel. Double jointed knees, pretty nice. Straighten her out, up and down at the ankle, right to left. Rocker, and of course toe articulation. Now before we go, let's take a complete look at the lower body. I just love these thigh-high boots. They're really awesome. Now this is of course one of those times when you can add a boot swivel here with a cut right at the top of the boots. Now McFarlane, you know, decided not to do this, which I could live with or without because it'd be nice to have it. But as I said before, if you heat this up, you do get some nice hip swivel by just using the joint that McFarlane has at the hips. But what is really nice is the design of the boots. All the cool wrinkles, the way that shine just pops off of the figure, and the design of the sculpted ankles just really makes a seamless line down the legs. Just beautiful leg design. Get a lot of cool poses with that. Now that does look really, really good. Take a look at her from the bottom. No tread and no identifying marks, but she does have some spiked heels. Moving up the back, beautiful work on the back of the seams of the boots. You can actually see the seam line with a lot of cool wrinkles and textures. Into the booty, which as I said before, does not look that good in the, you know, cut that they gave her trunks. And then up into the back. Now we could take a look at the back, but it's not so muscular as I actually prefer, but you can see the shape of her back through there, so that's pretty cool. And then of course the blue hair that really pops. So all in all, pretty cool figure. Now before we go any further, let's go ahead and get started on the changes I made. Now, once I did pop off the legs and pull off the trunks, the first thing I did was actually make a notch in her abdomen joint, which actually allows her to crunch forward a little bit more. So that's one little mod that I didn't make right away, but then I did tackle her trunks. Now, what I basically did was I actually kind of used the Batgirl figure to get sort of a female reference of the like cut for the trunks, because if you look at her trunks, they have like a nice shape, almost like a bikini bottom sort of cut, and I just kind of followed that with this one. So I cut off a lot of the excess on the back, and then I cut the lower back to make it a lot more, like give it a more of a swoop. And I also split the trunks. They have a seam line here on the side, and then I took out a little bit of excess and then re-glued it all together, and then I did match the paint and then paint in all the seam lines, because if not, you will see that black plastic underneath. But actually, once I was done with doing all this, you get more of a streamlined shape through her hips, and she still has the articulation where she could do the splits and stuff like that, but just the cut looks better on her. When you lean her back, the trunks don't bunch up in the lower back, because I actually cut it lower and gave it like a kind of like a crescent shape, so her back actually fits right into there, which is cool. And then of course when I tightened it up by taking out some excess, it just fits more snug onto her body. Now this is actually very reminiscent of what I did with the Arkham Catwoman. I kind of did the same thing where I cut off the excess and tightened it up, so it gives her a tighter fit and just makes that booty look a lot better than having all that extra plastic. So that's another one that I kind of had experience doing, so then I did it to this one. And then of course the final thing I tackled was her like crazy pubic area. And what I ended up doing there was rather interesting, is I actually heated it up, and I heated it up with a heat gun, but I was careful not to like melt it or scorch it. And then I actually got like a tool, basically like a shaping tool, which kind of looks like this. It's kind of flat, and once it was heated up, I actually used this to like reshape the area and flatten it out. And then I actually did also the sides to make it a little bit more of a narrow, like a little bit more of like a tapering sort of shape. That way it wouldn't be so like round and sticking up. So now I flattened it and then I shaped it. It actually did reduce the bulge of it. So now it looks a little bit more cleaner. Like when you look at her from the side, you don't see it sticking out. And if you have her legs close together, it looks actually more like a bikini cut. So she actually came out really awesome. Now you can get her in some really cool, poses with her legs stretched out. She looks awesome. You have her whip, as an accessory. But I was actually, much like the Arkham one, once I did my own little details to her, my own little mods, she's actually really fun to move around and to play with and to pose with. Now, you would usually bring out a Batman and have her, posing with a Batman. But I kind of went a different route, because like in my world, it's kind of like she had enough of that floozy Batman and she wanted some new blood. So I kind of matched her up more with Bane. And I take it more, Bane, Bane is more like a man's man. So he kind of like wants to take charge of her, even though like he does like want to give her her own way, but she can't keep her hands off of him. So that's kind of like a little series of poses that I did with them, and I actually had a lot of fun, and it's something different than the usual, Batman and Catwoman poses, but that was pretty cool. Actually, Bane had a lot of fun with her, and it was pretty awesome. So, pretty awesome figure. She does need a little bit of modifications to make her like that perfect figure. If you don't change her up, she's cool on the shelf and you could use her in figure photography. But when you do those little mods and make her more to your, pleasing, she is really, really fun. But anyways, you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.